panel that deals specifically with music because everybody always forgets about the music and forgets about budgeting for the music. So just hold on one second. We're going to do a 10-15-minute panel on music licensing and music supervision.
That's such a good question. There's no real way to prevent clients from taking money out of the allocated music budget. We do encourage them to keep some sort of budget around. Basically, I think there's a big misconception that you don't have enough money to bring on a music supervisor or a consultancy or someone like myself or Brandon because of budgetary constraints, when in fact we can work around kind of any budget based on the relationships that we formed with the labels and.
Not their mic, but
his mic.
I think mine's really low.
I'm sorry. That's okay.
The better song.
I think something that Brandon and I recently came back from Sundance, and something that we kind of found holistically was that there was kind of a lack of education amongst filmmakers as to how to effectively and legally use music within their film and what they really could afford and how to go about getting those proper clearances. And so something that we pride ourselves on doing is working around any budget constraints really and figuring out a way to make it work within the confines of your project. That makes sense.
That does make sense. So it is more cost effective to bring somebody on that knows what they're doing, knows what the problems, can anticipate the problems and help negotiate around those. From your perspective with independent filmmakers, is it more cost effective to hire a composer? Alternatively, do you need to license some key music? Does that help in the sale of the film, or does it?
I think it does. I think that that especially bringing bands and stuff into a film can help with the marketing. If you have a band that has a lot of kind of buzz and everything else within the industry and has a huge fan base and stuff, they're going to of course get that film out and help you promote it and market it and everything else. And I think that really picking those kind of the key elements and bringing them all together can really leverage your film.
I think another thing as well, I think it's a good point you brought up about bands having a fan base, because if you have a composer, the composer's going to be, okay, cool, this film's done, I'm going to the next one. If you have 7 or 8 bands who really are just kind of mucking about LA doing their thing, they're going to be telling people at the bike room when they play a show, I'm in a movie. And I think that's priceless. And another thing is, for almost pennies on the dollar, you can release a soundtrack on iTunes through like TuneCore or IOTA for like $10, and you can just put a compilation together. And that way you have cross-branding, you have cross-references, and other ways of people finding the movie through the music itself. And I think you can get a lot of music for fairly cheap. I know Crystal's really good with working around budgets as well. I personally manage composers and different artists, and we're always telling the artists, look, it might only be $100 here, $500 there, but if the film gets picked up outside of the festival, you're going to have more money. Plus, you never know who's going to be watching the film. It's just more eyes and ears on music. I think bands are very happy with that right now.
Is that really the value of music now? Is the cross promotion? Because really there are no MGs left, minimum guarantees, advances against soundtracks anymore, are there?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an old battle telling an artist you're doing it for the exposure, because we've been doing that for a while, and it seems every other month the money goes down again. But it's kind of what you make of the exposure, and just making sure that your artist and also your movie is available on all the platforms, and making sure people can buy the music if it's in a movie. It's kind of on the artist to make that happen, and we as supervisors will make sure that happens as well. So if you have 10 songs you're using in your movie, you can make sure that it's up on all the different digital download sites. You can even go to places like beatport.com and buy the soundtrack.
How early in the process is it smart to bring on a music supervisor?
I personally think it's smart to bring on the supervisor at the beginning of the project, just so that you guys can kind of talk and get an idea of what direction you want the music to go. Of course, it would need to happen around post if it doesn't happen before.
Isn't it at post it's a little late?
That's what we come into. I mean, we've had times where someone says, hey, we had to scrap our supervisor, they didn't clear things properly, can you do this in 7 days? And we're not going to say no, but we don't like to do that. I think something that helps us out a lot is a lot of people will use music very prominently in a movie, but they won't plan for it. They will just say, okay, we'll just throw a song in this bar scene. But you can even have bands come in for really cheap and actually perform live on the set, and then it's going to be great because you have the band actually intertwined with the film. It doesn't have to be a big scene. You can show them for 4 seconds, but bands are always down to do that. And there's so many bands in LA from overseas that'll come do it while they're here as well.
Now, could you talk a little bit about the difference between clearing songs for various levels of distribution? Like I'm assuming that with the smaller independent films, when they do think about clearance at all, they think about only getting it for festivals. And so there is a level where you just clear it for festivals, but then the distributor has to go out and clear the music, or the producer does, and that's another cost that's not accounted for, or reduces the amount of money the distributor will pay for a film.
Right. I'm actually, a project just got brought to me a few days ago called Made in China. That was, I guess it did really well at Sundance. I actually haven't seen the project, but that's exactly what happened. They had a ton of music in there. They had festival clearance rights, and thankfully they got a distribution deal and everything else. But they went and figured out how much money it would cost to actually clear the music that was within the film, and it was upwards of like $300,000. And so the producer called me. She's like, I don't have this money allocated. I need help. And so we're now going back in and trying to replace those songs for next to nothing, which is difficult, where if we just got brought into the beginning of the project, I think that we could have found amazing music that we could actually clear within their budget, and this would have obviously never been a problem, but, you know.
Yeah, and we'll put step deals in place as well as to where here's your festival rights, but the biggest problem is people will only clear festival rights. You're setting yourself up for disaster. Because you clear everything else for distribution, the music should be with the film, otherwise you're just throwing it in there. So what we'll do is we'll step deal and say if you pick up worldwide distribution, then it's X amount per song.
So yeah, so you pre-negotiate.
Yeah.
So they're only out of pocket for the festival. Things go great, but the price is already locked in, and you don't lose your leverage.
Yeah, definitely.
And usually that's based on copies sold, in my experience.
Yeah, straight to DVD definitely. It's like the amount of DVDs you actually sold through like a Blockbuster, whoever it may be. But we try to just clear here.
What
and
about
then
theatrical? I mean, do you, in the step deal, do you account for worldwide theatrical or domestic theatrical release?
Yeah, definitely always. Because we don't want to have to go back in and substitute songs, because a producer or director will fall in love with like a Coldplay song and put it in a festival and hope no one sees it. And by God, people are going to see it if your film does well, and then you're not going to have that song anymore.
You're betting against your movie at that point. You're hoping that they don't see it, but you're putting it in there.
It is.
It works the best creatively.
Yeah, and we even had talked with people involved in the independent side of Sundance, and they said it's a major problem for them because people will bring them. And Sundance will know they didn't clear that music, so they're like, okay, well, what's the best case scenario? You get distribution, and then all of a sudden there's less scrambling, and you call us with a week out, and we're